That's an awesome hill climb, Jim. Man, you're really pushing me to my limits this trip.
That's what you wanted, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no sense coming all this way for mediocrity.
That's good stuff.
Okay, well, Jim, I got a few questions for you.
Okay.
You got some time for an interview?
Absolutely.
Because our viewers really want to know what makes Jim Hyde tick.
Let's see if we can give them some insight.
Jim, I got to tell you, we're having an absolutely fantastic weekend. Your instructors are top-notch, and I've been privileged to have some one-on-one instruction from you. And I'm absolutely sure that my motorcycle riding level has increased far beyond I would have even ever imagined. And I just absolutely have fallen in love once again with the 1200 GS. And you guys have been kind to lend me this bike. But Jim, I want to take this opportunity to ask you some questions.
Sure.
And so that our viewing audience can really get a feel for who Jim Hyde is and what this RawHyde Adventures is all about.
Sure.
Jim, how old were you when you first started riding motorcycles?
I am a pretty classic example of who a lot of the people that come here are. I had a dirt bike as a kid for a couple of years. I stopped riding to buy a car when I was 19, and I didn't look back for 25 years. I started riding again in 1998, and well, here we are 2012, so 14 years ago I got serious about it.
You really did get serious about it, because you've created quite a beast here, quite an enterprise here. Why did you start a adventure riding motorcycle school here, Jim?
That's a good question, and it came from a vacation that I took. I was in Europe once in the late 90s in a car driving around in an incredibly cool area of northern Italy, and for some reason the idea just popped in my mind. This would be a great place to ride a motorcycle, and I couldn't get that idea out of my head. I came home and called my travel agent and asked if she could find me a tour company that went to that part of the world so I could ride a motorcycle there, and she did, and so I went. And without being melodramatic about it, I never in my life had more fun than 2 weeks riding around the Alps and northern Italy on a BMW motorcycle. I came home in love with the idea of trying to find a way to make a living having that kind of fun.
Wow, you really had the trip of your lifetime.
That was awesome.
And it's shaped the rest of your life.
It has,
yeah.
It has indeed.
So after you took that trip to Europe and you got actively involved in riding motorcycles, what are some of the other great adventure tours that you've taken? What are some of the parts of the world that you've traveled to by motorcycle?
We've kind of been all over the world. We started off with a project in South America. Actually, we started in Mexico. We started running tours into northern Mexico to a place called Copper Canyon, which is, the Copper Canyon is to Mexico what the Grand Canyon is to the USA. Only in Mexico, it's 3 times bigger, deeper, longer, all the way around more interesting, and just bigger than the American Grand Canyon. And the cool part is you can ride a bike through it. It's free, it's open range, you might say. Whereas ours is a national park, you can't explore it. In Mexico, off you go. It's cowboy country. From there, we branched off into South America. Every year we do the Dakar Rally down there. And we have done trips in Europe now. We've done trips in New Zealand. We're planning a trip in Africa. So slowly, we're going global.
Wow. Now, I think you guys made a documentary about your most recent trip down to South America, the Dakar Rally.
The Dakar Rally, we did.
And how can our viewers see that?
It's on YouTube. Just simply Google or search for RawHyde and Dakar, and there you go.
Dakar is D-A-K-A-R.
D-A-K-A-R.
Jim, down here in Southern California, we got some really, obviously beautiful terrain, but what are some of the unique and challenging geographical features here that riders can expect to encounter at one of your classes?
I think that's, you know, there's an old phrase that even a blind pig finds an acorn from time to time. And for starting a motorcycle riding school, I just got lucky because this property has been in my family for 70 years now. And from a standpoint of teaching people how to ride these big motorcycles in a, well, we don't typically say off-road environment, but in a backcountry environment, we have a little slice of everything you could ever dream of doing in the real world right here on our property.
Every geographic kind of challenge, even all around the world.
We've got ditches and ruts and steep uphills and mild uphills and off-camber climbing things and switchbacks and single track and two track and just everything that exists in what you'd really want to do with these things in the real world. We can give you a controlled opportunity to experiment with right here on the property.
Now, I even noticed you guys had some sand pits, you had some moguls.
The sand pits and the moguls are sort of homemade because sand doesn't naturally occur here, but sure, putting in a sand pit's an easy thing, and we do have a sand pit. We've got all sorts of things that we've built as confidence tools to just put people into situations that stress them, but yet it's still a controlled environment. And like the moguls you described, we built those, but there's a purpose behind that because, for example, there's a historic road here in California called the Mojave Trail.
Mojave Trail.
The Mojave Trail. And for 60 miles, it's nothing but moguls. You got to get used to riding moguls if you're going to ride the California deserts. So if we don't have it naturally, we've built it so that we can literally give a guy a 100% experience of what he's probably going to encounter in the real world. The one thing I don't have is a river.
Or ice.
Can't do river crossings. Yeah, and ice just melts too fast here.
Yeah, it'd be a hard time. You got to get yourself one of those ice skating rinks or something. So you've got the hardware of the equation, so to speak. You've got the geographic terrain, which you say has just been a blessing. As I understand, your father bought this property, and now you're the second generation to live here and operate your school here. But almost the more important critical component is the human factor, your instructors. Mm-hmm. Now, I've spent some time with your instructors, and I've been to different schools of different disciplines, and your instructors are absolutely top rate. And
we have good guys.
What makes a good instructor? I kind of know what makes a good instructor, but share with our viewing audience how you select your instructors and what you feel makes for a really good instructor.
You know, being competent at teaching people how to do things like this require a series of skills. You got to be a good rider because you have to demonstrate what you expect your clients to do or your students to do. So you have to be a good rider. You have to be an excellent communicator. You have to have a good command of the English language. You have to be able to describe things. You also have to be able to meet people at their level. There are people that are aggressive by nature, and to teach those people well, you have to take command of them. You have to sometimes get in their face a little because that's what they expect and it's what they respond to. On the other side of the spectrum, you have very timid people who are worried and fearful. They still have a little adventurous spirit, but they're just timid people. And with those people, you have to be encouraging. You have to handhold a little. You have to pat them on the back, tell them they're doing well. An aggressive rider may simply want to be challenged. Listen, this is what I want you to do. And a timid rider, you say, listen, now you can do this. All you have to do is focus. And a good instructor has to be able to intuitively decide how to treat that person. Sometimes without having much interaction with them. You have to have a really good sense of intuition, how you approach people, and above all, you just got to be a nice guy. So you take those things, put them together. It's kind of hard to find people that have all of that. And
you were telling me about a story earlier that emphasized the importance of having a super abundance of enthusiasm for riding.
You know what? There's an interesting parallel that I've seen in training. One of my instructors is an instructor at the LA Police Academy Motor School, and he treats people completely differently than the cheerleading approach, because in some instructional situations a guy's applying for a job. He's focused at a different level than someone who has come as a consumer and paid a fee to learn something. So you have to really be able to treat people in a variety of different ways, and typically when somebody has paid to come have a learning experience, they don't want to be yelled at.
Sure.
They don't want
that boot camp mentality.
Yeah, they don't want to be told what they're doing wrong. They want to learn and they want to be encouraged. And you've got to be a cheerleader. You slap them on the back, you say good job. Many times they know they've screwed up, but you don't want to tell them you've screwed up. You say good job, try it again, and off they go. So yes, you're right. Part of the job is cheerleading.
Well, you know, I almost know the answer to this next question. What is it about your job that gives you the greatest joy? Why do you enjoy doing what you do every day?
I enjoy positively impacting people's lives. the most rewarding elements of this come sometimes 6 months or a year or two after someone has been here. And an example of why I enjoy doing this is an email I got from a guy who was in the middle of Siberia.
Siberia.
And he wrote me a note from an internet cafe somewhere in Siberia. And he described himself as, he introduced himself, Jim, it's Bard from Arizona. I'm in the middle of Siberia and your training saved my life today.
Wow.
You know, and he
described
a situation that he had come upon, and he reacted based on what we had taught him. And you know, that's powerful stuff. That makes you feel real good about what you do.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I really want to emphasize for anyone who's never been to RawHyde Adventures that your instructors, you know, go over the basic drills that we do here enough times with enough repetition that it really ingrains the skills. It becomes intuitive. It becomes, you grow that muscle memory, whether it's counterbalancing, which was a major learning point for me, or whether it's proper brake technique, standing on the pegs, balance, finesse, clutch control, throttle control, and then the confidence that comes out of that from doing that repetitively. You know, I wouldn't have come up that hill that we just came up 2 weeks ago. But after being here and riding around with your instructors and you know, I've already built that repetition. Now I see, I can do it. I can do it as long as I stay calm, keep the motorcycle controlled with finesse, piece of cake. Jim, I understand that in order to augment your success here at RawHyde, you came up with a great idea that's very unique about how to gather together a great bunch of individuals to kind of act as business consultants to you. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. I have never grown a business before. I've always worked for somebody else, and I have always heard mostly the presidents of the companies that I worked for, they would say, yeah, I'm sitting on the board of XYZ company and blah, 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 and I always wondered about that. And as I started growing RawHyde, and especially as our relationship with BMW blossomed, I realized that we had some growth potential that was probably beyond my basic skill set. And I thought, how can I find talent that I can afford to help guide me through some of the stormy waters of growth? And I had a little epiphany one afternoon when one of my clients was describing a business challenge that he had faced, where he had lost $8 million of his personal net worth in a day based on an exploding satellite on a launch pad that he was part owner of. And I realized I have, as customers, as people I have become friends with and provided services to, I have some pretty amazing people, and I probably don't even know it. So I thought that people who have a desire to play in this game might see the personal value of being associated with us at a deeper level, where they could enjoy stuff we do at either a discount or for free.
And contribute to your success and feel they were part of it.
Absolutely, and become like a steering committee. So I sent an email to my customers, the people who knew us the best, and I said, look, I am looking for, and I called it a board of advisors. I'm looking for some guys that have a variety of talent, from finance to marketing and business development. If you'd like to help me grow RawHyde, I can't offer you much other than a little bit of fun and a chance to say you're connected to a fun and cool little company.
Hey, that's the biggest reward right there.
Absolutely. And
especially for successful guys.
Yeah. So I sent the word out, and I had several hundred of my customers volunteer to help.
You sent out an email and 400 people responded to you with resumes.
Yeah.
That's an awesome turnout.
Yeah, it's incredible. And some of these guys have amazing talent, and they've all got incredibly successful companies. They give me their advice for free, and they help me solve problems, and we get together once a year and we have a fun meeting, and I take them for a ride, and they get to ride the latest BMW bikes, and they get to say they're associated with RawHyde, and I think it works for both of us, but I get some really good advice.
I'm guessing that for many of those people who sit on your board, their trip here to RawHyde Adventures is probably the highlight of their year.
Yeah, there's a fair chance of that, I think.
Yeah, for some of them, definitely for me. So, you know, one of the things that makes your school really special is your deep connection with BMW. You're one of the only 9 schools in the whole wide world that the leadership of BMW has come on and given you their official stamp of approval.
That's true.
And you know, BMW is not only a prestigious company, but as I keep saying on film, I'm absolutely I've driven all sorts of motorcycles, and I'm absolutely enamored and totally in love with the 1200 GS that I personally ride at home.
Yeah.
And we've got an 800 GS in the BMW series and a 650, I understand. I'm not sure of other models. What is it, Jim, in a nutshell, that makes the 1200 GS shine like it does?
Well, I can give you a parallel that'll connect that thought. In the early stages of World War II, the United States brought out this little contraption called a Jeep that was an all-purpose, go-anywhere vehicle that, for military purposes, achieved a goal. However, when the war was over and that little machine integrated itself into the mainstream of American conscience, everybody had fun in Jeeps, and they could go anywhere and do anything. And that's kind of what the GS represents. And BMW started the whole concept of adventure motorcycle touring because they brought the GS out in 1980. And it was really a departure from any motorcycle. It wasn't a cruiser, it wasn't a sport bike, it was an all-purpose bike. And BMW really started the industry. Several other companies have come along now with Me Too bikes, but BMW started it, and they started it to race the Paris-Dakar Rally. They have a bike branded the PD to embody what that was all about. And for the last 30 years, they've slowly been, carving out a niche for themselves, but it's kind of hard to go alone. It really is. It's hard for one company to develop a complete industry, and so now that other companies are coming in, it's legitimizing what we do.
Validates what BMW set out to do, yeah.
However, BMW has 30 years of product refinement. They've learned a lot. Their bike is several steps ahead of what else is out there. And I mean, as you know from what you feel, it's an awesome machine. They have a full product line so that they can provide bikes to a broader range of people. These things are big and heavy and bulky, but as you said, 650s, 800s, 1200s, there's kind of something for anybody who has the desire to get started in this.
And without letting the cat out of the bag, because I'm not authorized to say too much, BMW might have some really exciting plans in the works in the future to kind of expand that market, to grow some more consciousness, to grow some more awareness, and to share this wonderful world of motorcycle adventure riding with the younger generation.
It's their plan. The people who buy these kind of bikes are, there's a lot of gray hair in the adventure riding community. BMW knows they have to get younger riders involved, and yes, they've got products and plans to draw those.
I'm excited to see what is unveiled. Jim, a lot of guys are going to start riding for the first time. We got a lot of new riders out there in the streets. This is for the benefit of those guys. What advice are you going to give new riders, street riders, and then also the guy who says, "Hey, I'm watching this footage about this adventure motorcycle riding. It looks pretty neat. Maybe I'd like to give it a try."
Sure. Well, I think it's a pretty predictable answer that I'm going to throw out about that. But I'll preface it by saying a motorcycle is a tool. Okay? Any person who's going to own a tool should know how to use it. Okay? Whether you embark on a mission of focused learning for yourself, or whether you choose to sign up for a school and have it handed to you where you can have people that watch you and correct you and guide you, you should focus on education. If I can get on a soapbox for about 30 seconds, North America we should be ashamed of what we allow people to do with motorcycles. Every place else in the world, it's a 6-month to a 2-year process to get a license to ride a motorcycle. Anytime you get on something that can't hold itself up and you go riding or you go someplace with it, you're risking your life. Your life is a fairly precious thing. You should take some time to figure out how to use the machine so you can stay as safe as possible. In the US, we have no rules. You can go through a weekend training school that gives you the right to circumvent the test at the DMV. Then all you have to do is read a little comic book and you can jump on any class of motorcycle and do whatever you want with it. Some people would say, well, the Wild West is alive and well. You can do whatever you want. And I say, you know what, you should learn how to use the bike. You'll have more fun.
Yes, you will.
You'll get more out of it. The experience will be richer if you know everything about it. And so that is my advice in a nutshell. Get some training. Learn how to use the bike so you enjoy it more.
Well, the next question is so you've got some veteran riders out there, such as myself. I've got over 100,000 miles on motorcycles in 24 years, and some of them have been on motocross bikes and and cafe style street racers and so on. And yet I can just tell you, in these past 2 days, I've learned a monumental amount of information and new skills that has made me a confident rider on a big 600-pound motorcycle off-road. Before I was, even just a little bit timid with such a heavy bike, and now, it's just don't give it much thought, the weight. So I'm guessing your advice is for veteran riders to come and get some instruction too, because I noticed that your staff, I'm sorry, I asked the question, I'm answering it, but I just can't compliment your staff enough. And I've watched as they've taken something like 14 students, because you've divided the class into 2 different groups, and in just 2 days we got riders of all different skill sets are already 10 times better than where they were when they started.
Sure. Experienced riders in North America are almost guaranteed to be self-taught. They kind of figured out how to ride a motorcycle, and they have managed to go for 100,000 miles or whatever. And I'm sure they've picked up a lot of the basic stuff. But in any discipline, where you are self-taught, if you have not got the book learning, or you haven't spent some time with a teacher, I don't care whether it's knife making. I'm sure a guy can figure out how to forge a piece of steel and sharpen it by reading a book or 2. But unless you spend some time with a master who can point out the little things you're doing wrong,
yep.
You will improve monumentally if you get some of those little tips. And I don't care how old you are or how experienced you are, you can always learn something from someone who has taken the time to learn how to teach. A big part of our customer base are Harley-Davidson riders that have got 200,000 miles of street riding. They come here, they don't have a clue how to take these big bikes off-road. They are experienced riders. There's a lot we can teach people, even people who think they're good. I'd be surprised how many little tips that they can pick up.
So, one point that brings up is something that you were telling me yesterday, and that is, a person's skill set, without the education, will probably get them through 90% of their riding challenges, maybe even 99% of their riding challenges. But that one time when they get pushed to their absolute limit, without that extra knowledge of the education that you guys provide here, that 1% could really end up biting them really hard. And you could be talking about hospital visits, destroyed motorcycles, maybe even worse, maybe having injured somebody else.
Sure. Well, from a standpoint of equating that observation to training, experience counts. When people learn things, they need to go practice it. And a great example is a guy who's a really good street rider and has 100,000 miles of experience gets one of these kind of bikes and begins exploring in the backcountry. And if they're out on a dirt road someplace and they hit a panic moment or a really stressful moment, they will revert to all the behaviors that they're used to, which are the street techniques, and that will get them in big trouble in the dirt. So training and then repetition. We talked about that a couple minutes ago. Just repetition of exercise to ingrain the necessary moves. And I'm kind of ambidextrous now. If I'm on the street, I can, after 10 years of really focused attention, I ride appropriately on the street, and when I get off-road, I can change gears, get into the off-road mindset, and I'll act appropriately in the dirt. And that just takes a lot of time, a lot of miles, and a lot of practice.
And one of the guidelines that you like to follow is to try to drive at 80% of your skill level and always leave yourself that margin of 20% for emergencies.
Absolutely. Listen, let's be really blunt. Anyone who lives, rides, or acts on a daily basis at 100% of their ability level is foolhardy. They call them accidents for a reason. Something unexpected comes up. And if you're doing anything right on the threshold, and something isn't right or something unexpected happens, you will fail and you will most likely get hurt. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're in gymnastics and there's not enough chalk on the bar and you expect there to be enough chalk and it's not there, you slip off and you fall and you get hurt. You're on a motorcycle, you're riding 100%, entering a turn, and there's a Jeep with a flat tire in a blind turn, you're going to have a wreck. If you ride at 80%, you've always got a threshold, a margin of safety. And I urge anybody who thinks about riding a motorcycle in any capacity to never ride at 100% unless they're in a controlled environment, like a racetrack or a training school or something where everything is predictable, then you can go at 100%.
And you got help at hand.
Yeah.
Yep, seasoned help. Well, Jim, that brings us to almost the end of the interview. Jim, what have been some of the highlights of your career?
The highlights of my career.
This interview?
Absolutely, Murray. Expert to expert. You know, this is actually pretty cool.
We've had a lot of fun. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, the highlights of my career come in a handful of ways. Starting my own company, scaring the hell out of myself to take a leap of faith to maybe see that if I could pull it off. Starting my own company was really cool, because then I could walk around and go, hey, I own my own company. And then the reality of that set in, and it was like 100-pound weight on my shoulder for several years as we figured out what we were going to do. A lot of tough lessons learned in that period of time. But an absolute highlight, and think about this, because I'm very proud of this. In the motorcycle industry, I started as absolutely nobody. I was a guy from the outside. I had no reputation as a rider, a racer. I hadn't worked for any companies within the motorcycle industry. I entered the industry with a concept of starting a training school, and in a relatively short period of time, captured the attention of one of the world's premium brands. And for a guy who really didn't know anything about motorcycles 10 years ago, to be authentic enough and credible enough to have BMW assign me the role of being their 9th training school on the planet, that's a pretty significant accomplishment.
As I understand, you're one of their favorites too.
We do a good job. We are so authentic. With everything else that we do, we give them something I call enhancing the ownership experience of the BMW product. And that was absolutely a highlight. When they came out with the contract and we had the signing ceremony and we had the special pen, which I still have, that's a total highlight. And then summarizing all of that, it's the emails I get from time to time from somebody that says, you saved my life. You saved my wife's life. I'm having so much more fun than I ever dreamed of.
You changed my life.
Yeah, those sort of things. That's the reward.
So you went from, really being an unknown in the industry to a leader in the industry, and in a really short period of time.
People say that, it seems like a lifetime, but I guess it's really only been, we've been in business for 10 years. We were a privateer from 2001 till 2008. So for 7 years we were a privateer, just clawing our way. And BMW recognized us in 2008. And we've gotten an amazing amount of traction in the last 4 years. Yeah,
and something that you hadn't mentioned, but is a reality because of our times. You did that all in a recession.
Pretty much.
When when businesses left, right, and center are failing, you've grown an incredibly successful business, and I so much admire that, and I've really enjoyed all the insights that you've shared with us over all the meals that we've spent together and all the time we spent together. So what, looking back, you said there were some hard lessons. What you can either reflect on as a business owner in the past 10 years or your whole life. What are some of the really important lessons that, when your young daughter, maybe let's say she's 16 years old, she comes and says, Daddy, teach me the lessons that you learned in life that you want me to know.
Wow, that's big. Well, for me, everything that has evolved into any form of success for me has come from people skills. Knowing how to treat people nicely. The golden rule, I guess. You boil it all down as that. You treat people with respect, you treat them nice, you treat them as you'd like to be treated, you'll get what you need out of life. A really important business lesson, and you keyed on the recession, no debt. If you can't afford to buy it, don't do it on credit. Fund whatever you need to do to grow your business with cash that you've earned. Sometimes it takes longer than you wish it would, but don't go into debt, because debt's what kills you when the economy goes bad. And that is, as I built RawHyde, I sold everything I owned so that I had cash to invest to build the company. So for most of these last 5 or 6 years of struggle in our economy, we haven't had any debt, and that's part of what has allowed us to stay afloat. We haven't had the same kind of hit that a lot of companies have taken, because demographically, BMW customers are good people to do business with. They tend to have a better income level than a lot of folks, and so they've still got money to spend in the down economy. But you know, there's basic economics that play into anything, and that's a totally valuable life lesson. We have a debt problem in America.
We sure do. It's almost countercultural, not going into debt to build your business, but that right there, major key to success.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, I think my major life lessons may still be in front of me. Hopefully that helps.
Yep. Jim, I can't thank you enough.
Murray,
this has been this has been one of the highlights of this whole series.
Cool.
Yeah, we just enjoyed ourselves immensely. I know that Rick has enjoyed himself and Jason has enjoyed himself, and I got the most benefit because I learned all about riding these motorcycles. And you know, I hope we get a chance to come back for some other events.
Anytime, man. Yeah. Come to some of the cool events we do. You got a bike, you're in the community. If you're interested at all in seeing a little bit about the whole world of what these motorcycles represent, there's a really cool event coming up in Moab, Utah, the third weekend of September, where you could call it the Olympics of GS riding. It's called the BMW GS Trophy Challenge. And every 2 years, BMW hosts an event somewhere in the world that is a test of skill for owners of these bikes. BMW has a qualifying round in 13 different countries. A team of 3 riders and 1 journalist is selected from all 13 countries, and then BMW pays the bill to send them to Africa, to South America, or wherever, for a week to 10 days of adventure riding in a judged environment to see who the world leaders in GS riding are. It's super fun, it's inexpensive, it's a great way to spend 3 days learning about our world. And so Moab, Utah, September 21st to the 24th, it's about $300. All of your meals, a souvenir shirt, everything, turnkey operation that will show you what this is all about. So.
Now, Jim, is that also for spectators, people who don't own motorcycles, and go and watch?
Anybody can come and watch and see what's going on. There's a website, adventureriderchallenge.com, and you can learn all about it. There's a shameless plug.
And that's a Carter Cutlery high performance tip.